Greetings, Ted Auto here. Look at this definitely not rich young man working on an engine. No one could have ever imagined that he would later open his own company and start producing some of the most expensive cars in the world. Frederick Henry Royce was born in 1863 in Alvaton, Great Britain. He was the youngest of 5 children in the family. His parents, James and Mary, produced flour following the steps of their ancestors. But unfortunately, his father lacked business skills. The income was meager, and for many years the Royce family lived in poverty. In 1867, things got even worse. The family files bankruptcy for their business and moves to London in the hope of better life. By then, 4-year-old Henry had his first job. He was quite successful scaring crows on the farm, getting 6 pennies a week before more trials overtook the Royce family. In 1872, Henry's father died. All the children of the family had to work hard to make enough money. 9-year-old Henry wasn't an exception. He began selling newspapers and carrying telegrams. Royce later said that the long years of poverty played an important role in shaping him as a person. By the time he was 15, he had only completed the first grade of school and then began apprenticing with the Great Northern Railway Works. Our main character's aunt tried to support Henry, including financially. For lack of school education, the young man did not miss any opportunity to make up for missed knowledge. In his spare time, Henry studied himself algebra, French and engineering, but after 3 years, due to a lack of finances, the young man had to abandon the education as well. After these events, Henry worked in an instrument factory in Leeds for an electric light and power in London. In 1882, he moved again, this time to Liverpool, and continued to work for electric light. Even then, the young man had dreamed to make engineering his main job. So at the age of 22, he opened his first company with a fellow engineer named Ernest Clermont. The company was called F.H. Royce and Company. For several years, they assembled various electrical components, for example doorbells and dynamos. The company continued to grow, and by 1894 they had opened production of electric faucets. However, Henry's interests began to carry him in another realm, automobile manufacturing. Despite the fact that Henry Royce plays a major role in the formation of the company Rolls-Royce, there is another name in this story as well. Meet Charles Stott Rolls. He was born in 1877 in London, the youngest son of Lord and Lady Lingettuck. As a child, the young man developed strong interest in engineering and maintained it to adulthood, continuing to study engineering at Trinity College in Cambridge. Charles was so obsessed with tinkering the engines that during his student days, the young man earned himself the nickname Dirty Rolls. Henry was the first graduate to own a car. In his 18 years, he brought himself a Peur de Faltine model from France. And remember, this was back in the day when many people didn't even know what a car was. After graduating in 1898, Charles started to work on a steamship, and after that he moved to London and there started to work on the railway. But he already knew that he wanted to engage in automobile engineering, to make discoveries and to introduce new developments to the market. And thanks to the financial support of his father, Charles opened his first automobile showroom in UK in 1903. The company was named C.S. Rolls and Company, and the next few years our hero would dedicate himself to the import and sale the cars of the companies Peugeot and Maneuver. The business brought in super profits, and Charles spent a lot of money earned on his sports hobbies. Rolls was not only a car enthusiast and racer, he was also a keen airline pilot. As you can guess, both of these hobbies are extremely expensive, but unfortunately some years later Charles had to pay unexpectedly high price for his hobbies. But for now, back to Henry Rolls. The longer Henry ran his F.H. Royce and Company, the more he took interest in automobiles. In 1901, he decided to improve on a recently purchased used 2-cylinder Decavine, but after he did so, it wasn't enough for him. He wanted to build his own car. Henry was a perfectionist. After assessing the car and finding a lot of imperfections, our hero decided that he could do better. And in 1903, according to his own design, he assembled his first gasoline engine, and the next year, the first Royce car with 10 horsepower and boat rolled through the city. Since the opening of Henry's company, 2 decades had passed. Business was booming, so after the test of the first car, he decided to build another one, and then another one. Henry had his first car for himself. He gave the second to the partner Ernest Clermont, and the third car was sold to one of the shareholders of the company, Henry Edmunds. It was that Edry Edmunds who would later arrange the meeting between Rolls and Royce. Henry Edmunds was a shareholder in Royce Company and a friend of Rolls. Charles Royce was limited in foreign car sales and wanted a development. Royce had just begun to produce his first cars, and from the first models began to do so at a high level. The idea to introduce engineers was literally on the surface. Edmunds had no idea that the meeting he set up would later change the whole world of car construction. Despite the fact that Rolls was always a proponent of 3 or 4 cylinder cars, Royce's 2-cylinder car made an impression on him. Literally from the first minutes of riding Henry's Royce vehicle, Rolls knew it was exactly what he was looking for. After the first test drive, Charles offered to sell Henry as many cars as he could. The two formed extremely unorthodox duo. Their difference was about in everything, from their age to their social class and education. At the time they met, Royce was 41-year-old, when Rolls was just turned 26. Rolls was trained by Britain's best masters at a prestigious institute, when Royce was purely self-taught. As we already know, such a mixture had a powerful effect. In 1906, Rolls-Royce officially came out with a line of 6-cylinder silver ghost model cars. That same year, the car was named the best car in the world. An impressive result. However, it takes vision to make a brand, and while two engineers were busy building and selling cars, Charles' partner, Claude Johnson, took the role of managing director. Claude was determined to firmly establish the company's reputation in the world market, and being a genius in advertisement, he ran the brilliant campaign to solidify the companies in people's minds as a manufacturer of reliable cars in the highest quality. One of the early advertisements for a 6-cylinder Rolls-Royce with 40 to 50 horsepower on board presented the car as the best car in the world. That promotional presentation of the car launched the image of the entire company. It demonstrated engineering excellence and brought the company's craftsmanship to a global level. Claude integrated himself in the company so much that he would later be called the hyphen between Rolls and Royce. Marketing was top-notch, but Henry and Charles also worked hard for the company. They gave all they had, pushing the bars of the quality to the next level. Henry played a critical role in production. He was the one who knew how important it was to work to the limit to achieve the highest results. Henry was described as a real workaholic who regularly forgot to sleep and eat. Sadly, this lifestyle certainly affected Royce, but after all that, he outlived his business partner Charles by several decades. Over the years, Charles' passion for the aviation only grew. He even offered to design an air engine for Henry, but he wasn't interested. Charles even purchased his own aircraft, in which he made about 200 flights. In 1910, he became the first man in the world to make a double flight over the English Channel without stopping, but just 2 months later, everything changed. At the age of 32, Charles died in a plane crash over Bournemouth. Charles became the first British to die in a plane crash. His death marked the end of the brilliant Rolls-Royce duo. Now, Henry had to develop the company alone. Henry continued to work tirelessly, and his designs continued to build the company's reputation to the top. He was uncompromising in his principles, using only the finest materials and making sure assembly was also on the highest standard. Here's what Henry once said: "Strive for perfection in everything you do. Take the best that exists and make it even better. When it does not exist, design it." During the World War I, Henry did start making the air engines, but not for Charles anymore. And for the next 2 decades, the company's business was going flawlessly. However, Henry continued to ignore the health problems, and in 1933, he died of inflammation of intestinal tract. The engineer's early years spent in poverty and his subsequent neglect of nutrition played their part. In the last years of his life, he was close to disability, but in spite of all difficulties, he continued to work. His unwavering enthusiasm and dedication to the craft of engineering were above all else, and he continued to devote himself to his work until his last breath. And that is not a metaphor. He wrote his last engineering notes on his bed hours before he died. Henry was 70 years old. Rolls-Royce remained a well-known name in the engineering world to this day. This company produces one of the best cars you can possibly buy. The company has 130 locations in 40 countries all around the world, and currently owned by BMW. The brand is still known for producing one of the most expensive and premium cars in the world. The lineup includes such models as Ghost, Phantom, some wrath and dawn. Thorsten Müller-Ottwas has served as an executive director since 2010 and to this day. It should be noted that the current director continues to maintain the company's reputation, never once lowering the quality levels set by the company's founding fathers Charles Rolls and Henry Royce. To this day, company is literally the epitome of premium and affluence. Something tells me that the founders would have been proud of their creation. And that's all for now. This story was brought to you by Ted Auto. Hit the like and subscribe to the channel. And remember, car is not just transport.